talk about individual well-being, really this is something that should not be underestimated. It reminds me of a well-known situation in modern science, which is called harmonic resonance. Let's say you have an object which is vibrating at a certain rate, and you get another object which is receptive to it. They both start vibrating at the same rate. So the same is the case with our inner state of being. When we talk about individual well-being, we should not think that this is limited to individual well-being. Because every human being, whether we know it or whether we don't know it, whether it's direct or whether it's indirect, is contributing his own stream to the collective stream of energy that exists in the society. So if we have a society where people, the average state of consciousness of the average individual is barbaric, then naturally we're going to have a barbaric society. But if you have a society where the average state of consciousness of the average human being is in a state of inner well-being, naturally, just as a consequence, just as a side effect, there's going to be well-being in the society. So it's almost as though what we see in the society is like a reflection, a mirror reflection of people's inner states. And, I'm not talking about creating a utopia. Of course, this world is never going to be perfect. It's always going to have problems. But if you look at what has been happening for the whole history of humanity, so much time, effort, and energy has been invested into trying to change the social structures around us, governments coming and going, political systems coming and going, and people have their own ideas of how things should be run in the society. And if we look at the history of humanity, obviously this has not worked. Changing the outside world, at the most, it can bring a certain amount of convenience to our lives, but it cannot transform the very experience of life. For that, you need much more than just focusing on the outside. You need to take a look within your very own being. And one of the major obstacles, whether it's for individual well-being or for social well-being, is just one very simple thing. If you look at most of the problems of humanity, in some way, one way or another, it's always related to the ego. That human beings are living with a tremendous inflated sense of self-importance. And you will find that if you have a very strong sense of identity, now anything which threatens your identity is enough to create any kind of disturbance within you. So, this is just a simple law of nature. To me, this is a very simple law of nature. Whenever we take something limited and we're stretching it out as if it's everything, now this is bound to create a lot of problems. There are some people who are so much identified with their intellect, they stretch the intellect out as if it's everything. That is not a balanced state of being. If you're too much caught up in your intellect, so much caught up in your intellect that you're not even receptive enough to enjoy life around you, that is the problem. Many philosophers are like this. They're too much entangled in their intellect that just simply taking an ordinary walk, they're too much engaged in enjoying the mysteries of the universe in their mind, but not awake enough just to enjoy life around them. It's not just the case with the intellect. Some people, they're so much entangled in their emotion, which is a limited part of you. They take their emotion and they're stretching it out as if it's everything. So this is bound to be the case, that whenever you take a limited part of you and you stretch it out as if it's everything, now this is bound to create all kinds of imbalances. And I'm not saying that the ego is a problem. Naturally in life you need a sense of self. But the only problem is if the ego is not seen, understood, and integrated. Now this is what's creating a problem. Nothing wrong with having an ego, but you've stretched it out as if it's everything. This is what creates the imbalance. And you will find that as you enter deeper into awareness, as you enter deeper into your own being, it seems for some reason, just as a side effect of deepening your awareness, qualities like love, compassion, wisdom, insight, fearlessness become very natural qualities. And once you discover your true nature, and you realize that the true nature within you is the same nature, that is the same original nature of the whole existence. Now think about it. Why should there be fear? Isn't all fear created in the mind because there's this idea that you're separate from existence? Because you're perceiving something as separate from you, and something threatens your identity. Now naturally, there's going to be fear. And if you look into this, how much of human life is being invested into our comforts, providing a certain sense of security, all these things which we create to create a very comfortable shell around us. But you'll find that the stronger this shell becomes, although it gives you security, at the same time this shell becomes your prison. If I have a very strong barrier around me, maybe I'll be very well protected by this barrier. But at the same time, I'm always going to be living a very limited kind of existence. One very well-known situation in the life of Alexander the Great. Everybody probably, of course, knows Alexander the Great. Amongst the Greeks, they were always hearing stories about these yogis, that they have such wisdom. And they were called amongst the Greeks gymnosophists, naked lovers of wisdom. They called them naked lovers of wisdom because most of the yogis that they knew of were either certain Hindus or Jain monks who would live naked. So they were just familiar with those kinds of yogis. So they called them the naked lovers of wisdom. So when Alexander the Great, he went into India, he was very anxious to come into contact with one of these yogis and to learn from them. And he's been hearing, okay, these yogis have secrets of immortality, and naturally his ego being enormous, he wants to find out, you know. So he told one of his government officials, I've heard of one yogi named Dandamish, go seek him out and tell him to come to me. So the government official goes out. Finally, he finds out where this Dandamish is. And he sees him. He's just a very ordinary looking human being, sitting under a tree, completely naked. So he asks him, he tells him, okay, come, Alexander the Great has called for you. And if you come, you're going to be rewarded tremendously. So the yogi told him, I don't think your Alexander the Great can give me anything really. Sitting under this tree gives me all the nourishment that I need from its fruits. I can bathe in the rivers. Nature's providing all of my needs, the fresh air. And I'm completely fulfilled. What can this Alexander the Great give me? Sorry, I don't want to come. Then the government official insisted. He said, okay, if you don't come, you're just going to have to get your head chopped off. You have to come. Then the yogi told him, your threats of death may have some meaning to somebody who has the fear of death, but this is something you should know about yogis. We do not have the fear of death. I'm so deeply fulfilled within myself that you can cut off my head, there's no problem. You can cut off my head right now, but still you are not going to be able to disturb my inner silence. So you can tell Alexander the Great, if he wants something, he should come to me. So the official, he told Alexander the Great, and when Alexander the Great heard this story, he was just completely stunned. Even fighting people, he's fought many battles in the battlefield, He is not heard of people, even amongst his own army, amongst his own officials, people with such courage. So he couldn't insist. He had to go and seek out the yogi. And eventually that yogi became his teacher. So fearlessness is a very natural quality. The deeper your awareness runs into your own being, because the more this becomes a living reality for you, that you're not separate from the whole. And you know, modern science is saying this, that all energy in existence appears different. Water may become gas, the gas may become water, the water may become ice. They look different from the outside, but it's actually one. It's one and the same essential energy. So once this becomes not an idea, not a belief, but not a philosophy, but once this becomes a living reality for you, that you're not separate from the whole, then naturally you'll be totally at ease with existence. So this state of union is the very meaning of yoga. The word yoga means union. It doesn't mean bending and twisting the body or breathing in various different ways. When you come to a state of perception where you're in union with the whole existence, at the level of your consciousness, there's no separation between the observer and the observed. That is the state of yoga. So everything that's being done in these processes, it's just an effort to create a certain atmosphere within you where human perception can come to this state of experience.